First at 9. This is Other Derana 24/7.
Possible cabinet reshuffle, Mahinda Amaravira indicates. RTI comes into force today. Government starts negotiations with a private equity firm on Sri Lankan Airlines. And United States warns North Korea of retaliation. Hello there, good evening. Welcome to the news on Other Derana 24/7. Let's start off with the local news. President Maithripala Sirisena says that Dhamma education plays a pivotal role in the process of building national unity and reconciliation. The President made these comments speaking at a Dhamma school discussion today on the concepts of national unity and restoration through religious leaders and teachers.
Look at the situation of the country today. The economy has collapsed. The development rate is poor. Poverty is escalating. We didn't hear the word corruption those days. Services are inactive today. The main reason for this is conflict that were in the country. We should appreciate diversity when moving forward as a nation. Nationalism is emerging again. So-called powerful leaders have become racist leaders.
I request all the Sunday school teachers to read philosophies of all other religions and religious texts such as the Bible, the Quran and Bhagavad Gita. That is my request. I have worked as a Dhamma school teacher too. I read the Quran when I was schooling. I read the Bible when I was in school, and I read the Bhagavad Gita. We should treat all children alike in the process of building national unity. The intention of this program is to build a good country for the children.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, along with key government ministers, assured the private sector that the government will keep up to its promises made before the 2015 regime change. They were speaking at a question and answer session organised by the American Chamber of Commerce.
The private sector had the opportunity to raise queries from the Prime Minister and other ministers.
I want to ensure that the whole country benefits and the future generations are secure. And I must say, I have no chintaniyas, just how to deal with the books.
5th of November 2015, you remember the day, the economic policy was announced in Parliament. You said, generating 1 million job opportunities, enhancing income levels, development of rural economies, ensuring land ownership in rural and estate sectors, the middle class and government employees, creating a wide and a strong middle class. How far have we gone? 2 years, 3 more years to go. You want to keep your job, Mr. Prime Minister.
Once we implement these reforms, we will be creating the infrastructure. There was more employment creation last year. 1 year went in ensuring that we didn't sink. If I didn't do that, we are sunk by now.
You have the previous administration giving the Colombo port 85% to Colombo merchant shipping. You have Saitam being introduced by the previous regime. No one talks about it. And then, when you want to give the Hamada report away, when you want to give 15,000 acres, why, Mr. Prime Minister? Are we doing something wrong?
I haven't given 15,000 acres away. We vested with the Rural Economic Development Corporation, and those who want to will have to apply there. I haven't given the Hambantota harbour away. We had a harbour for which we could pay the debts.
Consistent policy. A big question mark in the eyes of the business community. Taxation.
What we are going to do is to ensure that the precarious financial situation that was entrusted to us is, as the Prime Minister mentioned, put into good order. Today, fiscal policy is in place, financial discipline is in place, the budget deficits are reduced, the revenues are increased from 10.2% to 13.9%, and this time we'll achieve probably 14.6%. And that is it, and we have reduced taxes on many areas, even though you think.
Where is the FDI?
Well, that's the FDIs have two things. The last government used public investments as FDIs.
Let's talk about the Trump presidency.
Americans are used to policy consistency. We live with policy inconsistency. So we understand President Trump better.
And in one of our leading stories these days, the Government Medical Officers Association carried out an island-wide token strike, disrupting functions at several hospitals across the country. Now, the token strike was carried out for 4 hours from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Medical Students and Inter-University Students Federation carried out a protest yesterday against the Saitam ruling. The Court of Appeal ruled on Tuesday that medical degrees offered at the South Asian Institute of Technology and Medicine are legal. Police had to use water cannons and tear gas to disperse protesters who were disregarding a court order preventing protesters from disrupting public order. Later in the day, the Government Medical Officers Association issued a statement claiming that police had attacked a peaceful protest which was organized against the South Asian Institute of Technology and Medicine. The statement condemned actions taken by the police to resolve the chaotic situation and the arrests that followed. The GMOA said yesterday that a token strike demanding an immediate release of all arrested university students will be carried out during the early hours of today. Patients at the Colombo National Hospital faced many difficulties as a result of the strike.
The helpless people like us have to go through all of this.
It is wrong to beat up those students who would be doing a responsible job in the country in future. I agree with the strike action.
Patients at the Colombo North General Hospital in Ragama were also seen facing similar difficulties.
We have no idea about why they are carrying out this strike. We came to get our medicine and had to scuffle there to get the medicine. This is very unfair.
Education is being sold. I too came to get treatment, but I believe carrying out this strike is reasonable.
The scene from Colombo South Teaching Hospital in Kalubovila was also not very different from the other main hospitals in the country. Daily functions at the Karapitia Teaching Hospital in Gaul were also hindered.
My wife has to go through a serious operation and I came here to get an appointment for that. So many people had to go back because of this strike. How unfair is this?
The teaching hospital in Kandy, the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital, Polonnaruwa General Hospital, District General Hospital in Ampara, Mahiyangane Base Hospital, District Base Hospital Dikkoya, Balapitiya Base Hospital and hospitals in other areas were also affected due to the strike. Meanwhile, members of the Government Medical Officers Association expressed views during a media briefing in Colombo today.
This is the most brutal attack in the history of this country. As the Government Medical Officers Association, we condemn this attack. We would not simply wait and watch this happening to medical students. This is why we decided to carry out the strike from 8 a.m. to 12 noon today against the brutal actions of the police.
The Inter-University Students Federation also held a press conference regarding yesterday's incident.
People could say this is a defamatory act when there is a court order preventing all these rallies and protests. We will only respect the law when the law will be able to respect justice.
An executive officer of a private financial institute was shot dead at Ilimba Junction in Horana this morning. Witnesses have said that 2 persons who were on a motorbike had fled the scene soon after opening fire.
The incident occurred at around 7:55 this morning at Ilimba Junction in Horana when the 47-year-old had been travelling in his motor vehicle to work. The victim was shot using a T-56 firearm. The suspects had immediately fled the scene. A passerby was also injured in the incident.
There was an accident and I went to see it. At the time, there was traffic congestion. Suddenly, they opened fire.
The victim was identified as Srinika Nimendra Matakadira from Ingiriya, Andurugala. Police said that 3 special teams are conducting investigations into the incident.
The United People's Freedom Alliance General Secretary Mahinda Amaravira says that there is a discussion within the party about a cabinet reshuffle. He made these comments during a media briefing in Colombo today.
There will be a cabinet reshuffle. A cabinet reshuffle will be there when the president decides on it. There is no point in asking about it from Sumanadasa. You would have to consult another person. There is a general view in the country that there should be a cabinet reshuffle. We talk about it even within our party.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa said he will give leadership to contest the local government polls separately.
If he goes alone, he would have to fight all by himself.
There is a fear that the party will be divided.
If it gets divided, it won't be good for us. That is why we are trying to prevent it from happening. The chief ministers asked to work together, and a few UNP people went there to insult them. What is that? It is not the Sri Lanka Freedom Party members who are trying to protect the party.
The Secretary of the Ministry of Disaster Management, S.S. Mianwila, says that the government continues to invest more on disaster mitigation and planning in order to face an increase in adverse disasters. He made these comments at the launch of the World Disasters Report by the Sri Lanka Red Cross.
The World Disasters Report, launched for the 29th consecutive year, focuses on how governments, non-governmental organizations and other agencies should act as a coordinated body in order to ensure that most vulnerable people in times of disasters are taken care of. The theme for this year focuses on resilience and investing for the future. The report was presented to the Secretary of the Ministry of Disaster Management, S.S. Mianwala, by the National Secretary of Sri Lanka Red Cross, Nimal Kumar.
We had 574 disasters, 32,550 personnel killed, 108 million affected, 7.3 billion US dollars in damages, forced migration highest since 1945. That is why we call it as a hottest year. World has spent total development assistance US dollars 3.3 trillion. Out of that, funding for disaster, 106.7 billion US dollars. We require a new approach to international aid in financing. Just 0.4% of all aid is spent reducing risk. That equates to just 40 cents in every $100. 2/3 of disaster spending occurs after an event. Every time disaster strikes, investment is wiped out.
We are implementing disaster management program and we are planning for the future to implement especially the disaster risk reduction plan. Here, saving lives today, that means the disaster response part where we are very much involved, where the Red Cross also come forward to help us. And the Sri Lankan government is the biggest partner there, investing, spending, incurring huge sum of money annually by way of rescue, relief measures and many other ways for the disaster victims.
The right to information is now in the hands of the public, becoming a new fundamental right vested with the people. Minister of Parliamentary Reforms and Mass Media, Gayantha Karunatilaka, says the right to information spoke at a media briefing on RTI in Colombo today. The Gazette announcing the date of enforcement of the Right to Information Act was published last month in Parliament.
When the Right to Information Act is implemented, the government will be like a glass house. Since there is transparency and good governance, there is nothing for us to hide. We have activated this act fearlessly, just as the other developed countries of the world.
However, provisions of the Act denies access to information in 21 instances. Information disclosure will be denied if it would undermine the defense of the state or its territorial integrity or national security, would be or is likely to be seriously prejudicial to Sri Lanka's relations with any state or in relation to international agreements or obligations under international law where such information was given by or obtained in confidence. The information could lead to the disclosure of any medical records relating to any person unless such a person has consented in writing to such disclosure. The information relates to an election conducted by the Commissioner of Elections, which is required by the relevant election laws to be kept confidential. Information relating to any overseas trade agreement where negotiations have not concluded even after a lapse of 10 years.
The Ministry of Parliamentary Reforms and Mass Media will establish an office in Palawatta. From Monday onwards, people can get information from the office. We are hoping to give information from up to 10 years back.
අදින් අවසන් වන වසර 10ක් පස්සට මේ තොරතුරු දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. තොරතුරු ඉල්ලීම ඕනෑම
You can ask for information in any way. You can submit an application. You can request verbally, you can email an inquiry, or you can send a letter.
If certain information is requested from an office, the relevant person gets the first 4 A4 size pages free of charge, and thereafter each photocopy will cost 2 rupees and a printed copy will cost 4 rupees. At the same time, 20 rupees will be charged from individuals receiving information on CDs. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan arm of the Global Movement Against Corruption, Transparency International, filed a right to information request today. They have requested assets declaration of the President and Prime Minister, requested information from EPF about the criteria used when identifying investments, requested the customs regarding tax impositions and confiscations of goods. However, the Health Ministry had refused to accept TISL's information request on budgetary allocation to combat chronic kidney disease, the number of machines that have been allocated for the purpose, and whether they are in working condition. The TISL will file an information request with the Elections Commission on Monday for financial reports of political parties. And we take a short break now. We'll be back with more news. Welcome back. We continue with local news. Now, yesterday, Deputy Minister Derana Wickramaratne spoke on the matter. Right. I beg your pardon. Deputy Minister of Public Enterprise Development Derana Wickramaratne says that Sri Lankan Airlines will be given to a private equity company. He made this statement in response to a question raised regarding the ownership of Sri Lankan Airlines in the backdrop of various statements being made regarding offers to acquire stake in the national carrier.
Is Sri Lankan Airlines sold? To whom? How much? What's happening?
We have already got on to a strategy, turning the Sri Lankan Airlines into more a regional airline. The company has done a route rationalization, it's done a fleet rationalization, and it now needs to do further commercial efficiency related changes. But the company is short of capital, like most state enterprises, and therefore it needs capital, therefore it needs a partner. We've been through an open, transparent process, and we have got down to now from 8 to just 1 player, and the player is a private equity company. There are advantages in that company, and we will therefore talk with that company, but that also gives the government the liberty to talk to other airlines directly and to see what is the best fit for the country.
Well, the broader market closed in red, whilst the SLAP SL20 closed in green. Both turnover and volume dropped significantly, while foreign activities were high with a net foreign inflow. And we have RM Sivanandan for more details from the trading floor in our stock update today.
The benchmark All-Share Price Index lost 19.57 points to close at 6,119.99. While the S&P Sri Lanka 20 index gained 1.78 points to close at 3,506.13. The turnover was 409.45 million rupees with 8.17 million shares changing hands in 2,474 trades. The market capitalization at the end of the day was 2,698.06 billion rupees. Top 5 gainers of the day were Sansan International, Lucky Lanka Non-Voting, Kahavatta Plantations, Kamanex and Colombo Investment Trust. While the top 5 losers were Kelani Cables, Swarnamal Financial Services, Guardian Capital, Kagol Plantations and Laksapana Batteries. Today there were 3 crossings and the crossing turnover was 183.76 million rupees. Today's foreign purchases was 315.69 million rupees and the foreign sales was 225.9 million rupees.
And now we take a look back at the week's stock market performance.
During the week, ASP dropped by 0.3% and closed at 6,120 levels. This was mainly due to the price losses in AIA Insurance, Carson Cumberbatch and TJ Lanka. The average daily turnover for the week was 693 million, which was mainly driven by the foreign activity and the block trades. Meanwhile, S&P SL20 was 0.6% gain was recorded, which was mainly due to the commercial bank, Nestle Lanka and Dialog Asiata. The highest return sectors were trading sector and the telecommunication sector.
And now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies. One of the oldest schools in Sri Lanka, St. Thomas's College, proudly celebrated the 100th anniversary of its establishment in Mount Lavinia today. This Founders' Day was celebrated under the theme 100 Years at Mount.
The Founders' Day of St. Thomas's College in Mount Lavinia is celebrated on the 3rd of February every year. During the ceremony, Phase 2 of the Senior Quadrangle project, that is to house the London A-level section, was declared open and was blessed by the Bishop of Colombo, Right Reverend Diluraj Kanangasabe. The Bishop of Colombo also presented the scroll displaying the events in this year's college calendar and launched the official logo created by the students of the school to commemorate the centenary year.
And we go in for a break now. We'll be back with more news. Welcome back, and in your sports news today, Cameroon will join Egypt in Sunday's final of the African Cup of Nations after securing a 2-0 win over Ghana at the Franceville Stadium in Gabon. Ghana were making a 6th successive semi-final appearance but are still without success since 1982.
In their semi-final clash last night, Cameroon reached the African Nations Cup final, with 2 second-half goals securing a 2-0 win over Ghana. The Cameroon centre-back broke the deadlock after a free kick and took advantage of poor defending to score from close range in the 72nd minute. Christian Bassogog then caught Ghana on the counter-attack as Cameroon added a second with seconds remaining to secure a place in Sunday's final, where they will face Egypt in Libreville. Coach Hugo Brou's Indomitable Lions are into their first final since they lost to Egypt in 2008.
In golf news, the European Tour confirms that Tiger Woods has withdrawn from the Dubai Desert Classic before the tournament's second round because of a back problem. Now, George Coetzee currently leads the tournament on 9 under par, while Sergio Garcia is 1 back.
Two-time Desert Classic winner Tiger Woods struggled in the first round in Dubai as he shot a 5 over par 77 and failed to register a single birdie, placing him 12 shots behind day 1 leader Sergio Garcia. The golfer's agent Mark Steinberg said the American suffered a back spasm on Thursday night, but was told by Woods that it was not the nerve pain that kept him out for so long. Woods, who has won 79 titles on the PGA Tour, has not had a tournament victory anywhere since 2013, and his title drought in the major championships dates back to 2008.
Australia have taken a 2-0 lead in their Davis Cup tie with the Czech Republic in Melbourne.
Jordan Thompson, playing in his first Davis Cup, scored a crucial straight sets opening victory against Jiri Vesely to delight the Melbourne crowd. 22-year-old Thompson overcame Vesely 6-3, 6-3, 6-4 with captain Leighton Hewitt in attendance. Australia's #1 ranked player Nick Kyrgios, who disappointed with a second-round exit at last month's Australian Open, defeated Jan Satral 6-2, 6-3, 6-2. The Australians go into their doubles match tomorrow with a potential 3-0 win for the taking.
We'll be back with a short break. Leading in international news today, U.S. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, at the end of a 2-day visit in South Korea, warned North Korea of an effective and overwhelming response if Pyongyang chose to use nuclear weapons. Mattis's remarks come amid concern that North Korea could be readying to test a new ballistic missile in what could be an early challenge for Trump's administration.
In Seoul, U.S. President Donald Trump's defense secretary reassured South Korea that the Trump administration remains steadfast in its defense commitments to the region.
Any attack on the United States or on our allies will be defeated, and any use of nuclear weapons would be met with a response that would be effective and overwhelming.
North Korea, which regularly threatens to destroy South Korea and its main ally, the United States, conducted more than 20 missile tests last year, as well as 2 nuclear tests in defiance of UN resolutions and sanctions. North Korea's actions have prompted the United States and South Korea to respond by bolstering defenses, including the expected deployment of a US missile defense system in South Korea later this year. Despite Chinese opposition and calls for some opposition leaders to delay or cancel the deployment, South Korean Defense Minister Han Min-koo reaffirmed plans to go ahead and said Mattis's visit to Seoul, his first trip abroad as Defense Secretary, sent a clear message of strong US support.
Secretary Mattis' visit to South Korea and the meeting show our determined will to respond to North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, and this will be the strongest warning to North Korea.
Mattis has since arrived in Japan to meet Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
Well, that's it on the news here tonight at Other Than 24/7. For the very latest in local, international, biz, sports and weather, do log on to www.othertherana.lk. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. I'm Dasaman Prematunga. Thank you for joining us. Join us again on Monday.